capture Hades's hellhound, hold up the sky, and catch the bull made by Poseidon. Today we'll talk about the labors of Heracles and how this whole story ended. This video will start from the 7th labor of Heracles, because the first 6 are over on the Secrets of the World channel. But don't worry, I'll give you a brief summary here about the first 6 labors. Then, at the end, the Secrets video will be there, nice and neat, so you can see the story in a really complete way. Alright, well, Heracles, or rather Alcides, was a son born from the union of Zeus and Alcmene, after Zeus ended up taking him so he could drink the milk of the goddess Hera while she was sleeping. He gave him the name Heracles, in honor of the goddess herself. Hercules, in this case, is his Roman name. Hera was a very vengeful goddess and hated Heracles because he reminded her of how unfaithful Zeus was. When Heracles was still a baby, Hera tried to kill him by sending snakes to his crib, but little Heracles was so strong that he managed to strangle the snakes without any problem. Even so, Hera's revenge didn't end there. When Heracles grew up, he married a woman named Megara and had several children. And, knowing how much he loved his family, Hera decided to drive Heracles mad. In this madness, he ended up killing his wife and his children, losing everything he loved most. When he regained his senses, he realized everything he had done, and he became extremely desperate and very sad. He sought help, the help of the god Apollo, who could heal and advise people. Apollo told Heracles that, in order to redeem himself for everything he had done, he should serve King Eurystheus in Tiryns and complete very difficult tasks as a form of punishment and purification. Still determined to eliminate Heracles from the world, she suggested to Eurystheus that he order him to complete 12 impossible labors, because she thought that, in one of these 12 labors, Heracles would surely die. The first 6 labors were to kill the Nemean lion, kill the Lernaean hydra, capture the Ceryneian hind, capture the Erymanthian boar, clean the stables of King Augeas, and kill the Stymphalian birds. And the 7th labor is the one we will talk about now. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share as well. Thank you so much for your help. If you want to support me further, please consider becoming a channel member. Thanks to all current members. And another way you can help me is by using the Amazon links that are in the pinned comment. You can buy whatever you want. You can buy the things that are in the link, or just click the link and search there. Whether it's socks, underwear, pots, whatever you want, you'll be helping me. Because a part of that money, instead of going to Amazon, which is a billionaire company, will go to me, so thank you very much. In the 7th labor, we kind of have a crossover of stories, because Eurystheus asked Arcolenio to capture the Minotaur's father, the Cretan bull. The appearance of this bull has to do with King Minos, who was very anxious at the time, because he didn't know if he or his brothers would become the new king. So he decided to make a request to Poseidon, asking him to send a sign that he indeed would become king, and not his brothers. So Poseidon sent a sign. Poseidon agreed to send a white bull, on the condition that Minos would sacrifice that same bull back to him. When he received it, it could have been a more subtle sign, like a dream it could have, but then it wouldn't be as interesting. Anyway, this bull, this white bull, is the Cretan bull, but what happens next? Minos thought this bull was too beautiful and decided not to sacrifice it, because, not ironically, Minos was enchanted by the bull's beauty when he saw it coming out of the water, like those grand entrances on vacation with them. And for some reason, in the universe, Minos thought that Poseidon, the god of the seas, who made a bull come out of the water, wouldn't notice that Minos didn't sacrifice the bull to him. But surprise, surprise, Poseidon noticed and decided to take revenge. And my friends, he really got his revenge. He made Minos' wife fall in love with the bull. So the woman made a wooden cow, got inside it, and then the white bull, well, did what it did, and from that was born the monster called the Minotaur, which Minos locked up in a labyrinth. And some even say that this same bull, the bull from Poseidon's story, was the one that took Europa in that tale. That's where Zeus fell in love with her, took her across the waters, and she eventually landed there. Well, when he received the request to capture the bull, Heracles went straight to Crete to do his share of the work. He decided to ask King Minos for help, but then the king told Heracles to handle it himself, that he should capture the bull alone because he had nothing to do with it. And Heracles didn't have any trouble solving this situation. He simply grabbed the bull by the horns, put it on his shoulders, and took it to Eurystheus. After showing it to the king, he released both the bull and himself. It wandered through Sparta and all of Arcadia, passing through several cities until it reached Marathon in Attica, where it tormented many of the inhabitants there.
The eighth labor of Heracles might be one of the cruelest and most bizarre of his journey. Steal the mares of Diomedes, the king of Thrace. Steal, in this case, from Diomedes himself, of course. But these were not ordinary horses. The mares were beasts insane, and for a simply macabre reason, they were fed with human flesh. Yes, every unsuspecting traveler who set foot on that land became a feast for the mares. Some even say they breathed fire through their nostrils, a sort of mare dragon. These creatures lived locked up in a bronze stable, chained with iron shackles, and each one had a name. Porarbus, the swift one, Lampon, the shining one, Xanthos, the yellow one, and Dano, the terrible one. Together, they were the terror of Thrace, and no one dared to go near them. On the long journey there, Hercules met an unexpected companion, Abdero, a son of Hermes. And this guy wasn't just an ally, he's considered by some to be one of Hercules' lovers. And together, the two of them came up with a plan to steal those mares. It was pretty simple. First, protect the mares, then lead them out of the palace, and finally, face anyone who tried to stop them. With Abderos's help, Hercules carried out everything with precision, but Diomedes soon noticed the theft and went after them. There was just one detail that Hercules didn't know yet. The mares were carnivorous. So, while he was facing the king, he left the animals in Abderos's care, and that poor guy sealed the young man's fate. When Hercules came back, what he found there was devastating. Abderos had been devoured by the beasts. And then, seized by fury, Hercules captured Diomedes and threw him to his own mares, forcing him to suffer the same fate he had imposed on so many others. After that, it is said that the creatures became calm, as if all their rage had been satisfied. Only then was Hercules able to take them back to Eurystheus, and the king was so delighted with the strength of the animals that he even had them bred. From this lineage, according to legend, the noblest horses in history would be born, among them perhaps even Bucephalus, the legendary steed of Alexander the Great.
As his ninth labor, Hercules was given the mission to travel to the land of the Amazons to bring back the belt of Hippolyta, their queen. According to the writer Apollodorus, the belt had been a gift from the god Ares, Hippolyta's father, and symbolized her power as queen. King Eurystheus had made this request to Hercules because his daughter Admete wanted the belt for herself. In older versions of the story, the goal was simply for Hercules to defeat the Amazons and bring back the belt as proof of his victory. Well, in any case, Hercules gathered some companions and set sail for the land of the Amazons, which was believed to be south of the Black Sea. The stories differ greatly about who accompanied him. Some say it was all the Argonauts, others mention only the heroes, like Peleus, Theseus, or Iolaus. And they also say that the number of ships that accompanied him ranged from 3 to even 9. During the journey, they made stops in several lands. On one of these islands, called Paros, the sons of Minos killed 2 of Heracles' companions. Furious, the hero then killed their attackers. As compensation, he took with him 2 of Minos' grandsons, Altius and Sthenelus, who became part of his crew. Further ahead, Heracles helped King Lycos in a war against King Mygdon, and after defeating the enemy, gave the conquered lands to Lycos, who named it Heraclea. In honor of Heracles himself, everything seemed to be going well, until Hera, who was Heracles' enemy, decided to interfere in the situation. Hippolyta was impressed with the hero and agreed to give him the belt, but Hera disguised herself and spread a rumor among the Amazons that Heracles intended to kidnap the queen. Frightened and extremely furious, the warriors then mounted their horses and set out to confront Heracles and his crew. The first Amazon to attack Heracles was one called Aela, whose name meant swift as the storm. She was extremely agile and very fast. But even with all that skill, it wasn't enough for Heracles, who defeated her easily. Confused and believing that Hippolyta had betrayed him, Heracles went to her, killed Hippolyta, took her belt, and brought the prize to King Eurystheus.
The 10th labor. It seemed simple at first glance to steal the cattle of a local farmer, but of course it wasn't that simple. To begin with, the herd lived on a very distant island, Erythea, the farthest place in the extreme west of the world. It was so well known that at the time it was believed to be the end of the line, literally. And to get there, Heracles would have to cross deserts, seas, and unbearable heat. Legend has it that, in the middle of the journey, the sun was scorching. Heracles got so irritated that he took his bow and shot an arrow at the sun itself, at Helios. And you might even imagine that Helios would get pissed off about that, but actually, he was impressed by the boldness. They even talked, negotiated there, and reached an agreement. Hercules was gifted the cup of Helios, which was like a vessel, really fast, that Helios himself used to cross the ocean. With it, Hercules crossed the sea and finally arrived there, on the island of Erythea. But of course, the local farmer was simply Geryon, a three-headed giant, the son of Medusa. And this three-headed giant also had a two-headed dog, Orthrus, who was Cerberus's brother. But that one, Hercules took down pretty quickly with a blow from his club. That's when Geryon, the owner of the herd himself, showed up. And then, you can imagine the scene, a warrior with 3 heads, 3 spears, 3 shields, and 3 helmets shining under the setting sun. He charged at Hercules on the banks of the Anthemus River, but before he could even attack, Hercules shot one of his arrows poisoned with the Hydra's blood, and the arrow went right through his forehead. The middle forehead, I imagine, of the giant, who fell slowly, bending his neck like a poppy losing all its petals at once, as the ancient poets describe. And then, with the giant defeated, Hercules gathered the cattle and began the long journey back. That's when the second part of the journey began, just as full of obstacles as the first. You thought it had been easy, right? In the Roman versions of the story, Hercules passes with the herd through Mount Aventine, where centuries later the city of Rome would arise. Along the way, he faces Cacus, a cannibal giant who spat fire and tried to steal the cattle, son of Hephaestus, according to some. But as expected, Hercules defeated him and moved on. In another part of the journey, a cow from the herd ran away, and Hercules had to chase this cow all over Italy, even reaching Sicily. And when he was almost reaching Greece, the goddess Hera, who never missed a chance to torment Hercules, released a swarm of flies, and these flies drove the cattle crazy, causing them to scatter everywhere. Poor Hercules spent days trying to gather the animals, and even though he couldn't recover them all, he still delivered most of the herd to King Eurystheus. Another task completed, another trial overcome.
After Hercules completed the first 10 labors, King Eurystheus decided that 2 of them didn't count, because according to him, Hercules had help. In the case of the Lernaean Hydra, when Lolaus helped him, and also when he cleaned King Augeas's stables. According to King Eurystheus, he had help from the rivers, which did all the work for Hercules. The first extra labor that Hercules received was to steal 3 golden apples. From the garden of the Hesperides, these extremely precious fruits grew in a magical orchard guarded by nymphs called the Hesperides, and also by a dragon. To find out where this garden was, Hercules captured the Old Man of the Sea, a sea god capable of changing shape, and only released him after he revealed the way. During his journey, Hercules had other adventures. In some versions, he faced a giant named Antaeus, son of the goddess Gaia. Antaeus was invincible as long as he touched the ground, because he drew strength from the earth itself. Then, Hercules realized this and killed him by lifting him off the ground and crushing him in a deadly embrace. In another story, the hero passed through Egypt, where King Busiris used to sacrifice foreigners to ensure good harvests. Hercules was captured to be offered to the gods, but he broke his chains and killed the king, freeing himself. After many journeys, Hercules finally arrived at the Garden of the Hesperides, and there he found the Titan, Atlas, condemned to hold up the sky on his shoulders. Hercules then had an idea. He asked Atlas to get the apples for him, offering to hold up the sky for a while in his place. Atlas agreed, as he was the father or relative of the Hesperides and could enter the garden easily. When he returned with the golden apples, Atlas no longer wanted to hold the sky and offered to deliver the fruit to Eurystheus himself. Hercules then pretended to agree, but asked the Titan to hold the sky for a moment while he adjusted his cloak to make himself more comfortable. So Atlas took back the weight and Hercules tricked him and left with the apples. In another version of the legend, instead of asking Atlas for help, Hercules killed the dragon that guarded the garden. This dragon was called Ladon and had 100 heads, and with that he took the fruits by himself. When he delivered the apples to King Eurystheus, he was extremely furious. He couldn't believe that Hercules was capable of accomplishing such an impossible task, so he tried to come up with an even more impossible one in his mind.
The 12th and final labor of Hercules was, without a doubt, the most dangerous of all: to descend to the underworld and bring back Cerberus, the three-headed guard dog of Hades. Would you accept a stranger coming to your house and taking your little dog away? Now imagine doing that to Hades himself. Hades, on top of that, down in the underworld, which was a dark domain but accessible through caves and crevices. Getting in there was one thing, it was even easy, but getting out, almost no one could do that, because Cerberus was there, loyal to his master, guarding the gates of Hades. Unlike an ordinary dog, he didn't attack those who entered, but rather those who tried to leave. Knowing this, Hercules didn't come up with any elaborate plan. Instead of trying to steal the animal by force, he made a wiser decision to ask Hades directly for permission. But convincing the god of the dead to give up something, especially his little dog, would be practically impossible. That's when Heracles sought help from the one who really ruled down there, Persephone, the queen of the underworld. And to win her favor, he even initiated himself into the Eleusinian mysteries. Through these rites, Heracles learned the secrets of descending to the underworld, and then he won the goddess's favor. They say the entrance he chose was at Cape Tenerum, at the southernmost point of Greece, a deep cave that seemed to swallow the light. During his descent to the palaces of Hades, Heracles crossed paths with figures who had already challenged the gods. Among them were Theseus and Pirithous, forever trapped in the chair of forgetfulness, as punishment for trying to kidnap Persephone. Heracles managed to free Theseus, but Pirithous remained there. Soon after, he met the spirit of his old friend Meleager, who asked him for one last favor, to marry his sister, Deianira, a request that Heracles accepted, without imagining that this agreement would seal his own fate. Years later, at last, he reached the throne of Hades, and with the help of Persephone, the hero did something that no one had ever dared to do. He negotiated with the god of the dead. Some will say that Hades was pleased to annoy the goddess Hera, and ended up agreeing, but with one condition. Hercules could take Cerberus as long as he captured him with his own hands, without using any weapons, and returned him afterward. That means then that the challenge was set and the hardest part was solved. After that, he just had to go to Cerberus's lair and manage to tame the dog, which he did. With his immense strength and the protection of the Nemean lion's cloak, Hercules managed it. He did the impossible with Cerberus chained, and he climbed back up to the surface. They say that King Eurystheus was terrified at the sight of the beast and begged Hercules to take it back. Only then did he release the hero from his services.
There are several stories that happen with Hercules after completing the 12 labors. Some say that he joined Jason and the Argonauts on their journey in search of the Golden Fleece. However, the writer Herodotus disagreed with this version and claimed that Hercules, in fact, never sailed with the Argonauts. And, according to yet another version, he even took part with the Argonauts, but he didn't make it to the end of the expedition in Cocles. But according to the play Heracles by Euripides, it was at that moment, after completing his labors and while returning home to see his wife and children again, that Hercules is said to have been seized by madness and killed his own family. After this terrible episode, he was exiled from Thebes and left for Athens. In another story, he is said to have married a woman named Deianira, and during this marriage, a centaur named Nessus tried to assault Deianira when she and Heracles were crossing a river, and then Heracles killed Nessus with one of his poisoned arrows. But before dying, the centaur tricked Deianira, saying that the blood from his wound was a kind of love potion, that it would make Heracles' passion for her never end. And since Deianira was very jealous of him, she ended up believing this lie. Later, she used this so-called potion, which was actually poison, to stain a tunic that Heracles would wear. And when he put on that piece of clothing, the poison began to consume Heracles' entire body. So, already wounded by betrayal and deceit, he prepared a funeral pyre right there, and its place was meant for himself. And there, he asked to be laid and set on fire. His own mortal body, his human part, then died on that pyre, and after that his divine part ascended to Olympus. There, he was reconciled with the goddess Hera, whom he had been pursued by for a long time. He married the goddess Hebe, who was the daughter of the goddess Hera and the goddess of beauty. And so he became immortal and earned a place among the gods. Well, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and also click there. In the Segredos do Mundo video, with the first part of the 12 labors, leave a topic in the comments for a future video. See you next time.